Making headlines today is news that the government plans to roll out Sarah's Law nationwide in a bid to protect children like 8-year-old Sarah Payne, who was murdered by convicted sex offender Roy Whiting 10 years ago. From this week, every mother and father, carer and guardian will have the right to ask police about the background of any adult left unsupervised with their youngsters. This would not mean unrestricted open access to the sex offenders register. So do we welcome this law? Do you think this is a good idea, that it's finally coming through?
I do. I mean, you know, I know that there's always the risk of the sort of the vigilante aspect of things, but I think in this case, it's well worth it. I mean, I know for a fact that if I was really concerned about someone, I mean, I'm imagining that this is unlike Megan's Law, where they just inform you if a sex offender is moving into your area. That's not what this is it? This is if you have concerns about you know, if your child is at a playgroup or if he's at a sort of Cubs type of place, or just actually being, you know, with somebody unsupervised, that you can choose to ask if they have a record, if they're a sex offender, and I think that should be welcomed.
Well, it's already been trialled, as it were. It's been piloted and apparently has been deemed a success, which is why it's now going to be rolled out across the country. What about the worry that once you have that information, what do you do with it? You know, how do you feel once you know that you have a sex offender living nearby?
Whoa, it's really heavy information to be the keeper of. And I think most of us as parents welcome it, to the fact that we can have access to the information, because our job as parents is to keep our kids and everybody else's kids safe. And so if you have the information, I think as a parent, your natural thing is to want to pass the information on, you know, to other parents. There are, of course, you know, people that would have the information and don't take the responsibility.
And take it well.
Hands. Well, to give you an example, a friend of mine discovered that she had a sex offender living across the road from her, and she told her husband, who I know is a lovely bloke, a very calm, down-to-earth person, a really sensible parent, who felt compelled to go and knock on this guy's door and ask him to his face, "Are you a sex offender?" And he could tell by the reaction, because it was evident that it was the truth. That was that, and obviously, you know, the whole neighbourhood were full of it. And then one particular day, this guy, who they'd established was a sex offender, was sat on the corner of the street by a sweet shop, sort of sat back in the bushes. She walked past and asked him to move on, given that she knew what his background was. He swore at her. She told her husband. Her husband then went round to this man's house, knocked on the door. This is a sensible guy, and just said, "Don't ever speak to my wife like that again." And he'd already marked his card saying, "Please don't look at my child and walk the other way, you know, if you see my kid in the street." And then the police...
Did he hit him?
He got him up against the wall, because, you know, it's a very emotive thing, this subject, and it does make people feel very passionate. But the police came round and reprimanded him.
Of course, well, they would, yeah.
And this is the thing, because, I mean, you know, and I mean...
Why did they reprimand him? What reason did they give?
Because apparently this person was being monitored within the community, and they believed that they had the whole
human
thing...
rights.
And it was within their control. So I wonder how the police... I mean, I don't worry about whether the police are going to deal with it, because, frankly, you know, it's up to us to protect our kids, and it's up to the police to deal with that lot.
Can I just say, I mean, talking about the police, I know a couple of people who are policemen, and, you know, we've discussed this, obviously, you know, because I have children, and you know, friends of mine always have children. And the ones that I've spoken to, obviously I can't speak for the whole police force, they're a little bit hesitant about this because of the kind of example that you've just given there, because 99% of the time they know where these sex offenders are, they are keeping an eye on them in a very quiet way, but once the information becomes public knowledge, then it stirs up trouble. Now, I'm not necessarily taking sides here, I'm just saying that there are people that don't agree with it.
I think it's a confusing area for the police anyway, because, you know, because of many reasons. But as Lisa said, I think it's an extremely emotive subject, and we all get very... I mean, I get very het up about it, and I'm sure we all do. And, you know, we all want to do something about it, don't we? And of course, naturally, we would. I mean, I think isn't it a sad world that we live in, that we mistrust every man that do you know what I mean? Walks by and you go, "Oh, he could be. Couldn't he?" You know, and I think that's what we mustn't do. But I have to say, I mean, my father, who looked after my little girl, And Keely was always one for just wearing knickers and, you know, and running around. And he every day went to the playground with her, and every day he'd bounce her on his knee and he'd hug her and kiss her, and oh, he just loved her so much. And then one day these four ladies not only just stared at him, but actually said something awful to him. And he came home and cried, you know, because he said, my own granddaughter. And from that moment on, he felt he couldn't do that again. Isn't that sad?
But the
that we get to
system
that
works
position,
now, because now you can actually find out for sure.
I just think that if there were stricter penalties, then they wouldn't be released back into the community so quickly anyway, and there wouldn't be, you know...
Absolutely.
OK, well, let us know what you think. Go to the forum, itv.com/loosewomen.